Hi everyone. Welcome to Session 1, Deep Dive Strand Number 1, Curiosity and Engagement in Art. My name is Christine Grafe, and I teach 5th and 6th grade art in College Station, Texas. And in this session, we're going to be talking about how inspiring curiosity can lead to a higher level of thinking and creativity within our art classrooms, and also how developing our own intellectual curiosity can help facilitate that process and lead to more engaging lessons for our students. Let's dive right in. When we think about the role that curiosity plays in the level of engagement within our art classrooms, I think it's important for us to consider the merits of process over product. Personally, I've always been a proponent that the process of making art is much more important than the finished product. While it's tempting to develop lessons that end in a high level of success for the majority of our students, it's really that creative process that they go through, that thinking outside the box, that coming up with ideas that may differ from the original intent. That's where the real learning takes place. That's where students become truly engaged. I believe this is particularly important today in an era where students spend an inordinate amount of time glued to their tech devices that garner the majority of their attention. I feel kind of fortunate myself, being a child of the 60s and 70s. I know I'm dating myself, but I grew up in the era before technology. And when we were kids, we kind of had to make do with what we had available. We all played outside. We all rode our bikes around town. We created our own adventures with whatever materials we had on hand. We spent a lot of time thinking outside the box, thinking of ways to entertain ourselves rather than being entertained. And sadly, we've lost a lot of that in today's with today's youth. But I think that's an area where the art classroom has a special role in bringing some of that back and giving children and young adults the opportunity to explore, to expand, to come up with new ideas, to look at things in a different way, and to develop those creative thinking skills that we all know are so desperately important. So, what are some things that we can do to encourage that curiosity, to help foster that creative thinking within our students and within our classrooms? First of all, I think it's important to set the stage, to set the tone, to build an environment where creative and curious thinking is encouraged. I think there's a whole lot of power in the word yes. I love telling my students at the beginning of each semester, I'm going to give you a project to work on, but I want you to bring your own thoughts, your own ideas into it. And if you think that there's a way that we could tweak that project, maybe approach it differently, come ask me. And chances are the answer I'm going to give you is yes, because we won't know until we try. So that powerful word yes can really be a transformative thing within our classrooms. I think we also need to give students voice and choice. And so as students are developing ideas for a particular project, no matter what the medium happens to be, if we can allow them to bring their own personal ideas, their own experiences to the table, and apply that to the work that they're doing, not only will they take a lot more ownership and hopefully a lot more pride in the work that they're doing, but I think they'll put a little bit more effort into it as well. It has some personal meaning for them, which I think is really important. Another very, very important aspect is allowing and even encouraging mistakes. I always tell my kiddos that you learn more from making a mistake than you do from being successful all the time. And when we flub up, it causes us to approach things differently, to look at things differently, to kind of evaluate how we happen to go down that wrong path and what we need to do to set ourselves straight again. And so rather than discouraging those little mishaps and those mistakes, those little accidents, I think it's important to allow those things to happen and to understand the transformative power in making mistakes. Along those same lines, I think it's also valuable to allow students to change paths. For example, right now in my classroom, both 5th and 6th grade is working on paper mache projects, which can be very challenging for some students. Some of them have a difficult time transitioning into the 3D world. To think three-dimensionally, that can be a real challenge for some students. And a lot of times they'll have very lofty, very creative, wonderful ideas of what it is that they want to create. And as they work their way through the process of both planning and implementing those plans, sometimes they realize that, maybe I bit off a little bit more than I can chew. And so, I don't have a problem with a student coming to me and saying, Miss Grafe, I don't really like the way this is going. Can I change my idea? Can I stop and do something different? And 9 times out of 10, I'm going to say, sure, not a problem. I mean, let's face it, we as artists, we change our minds all the time. As we're developing our own artwork, it doesn't always go exactly as we originally planned. Sometimes we have to make adjustments, or sometimes we just have to scrap it and start all over with something new. And that's okay. That's all part of the creative process. And then another thing is to really celebrate when those students come up with something that's really original, that's really unique, that's sometimes totally off the wall. And some other students might go, what the heck were they thinking? But it's important to draw attention to those moments, to those students and the things that they're doing, and say, hey, I noticed you're thinking along different lines, and look at the success you're having because of the way you're thinking. Draw attention to those students, not necessarily in front of everybody. Some students really like that celebration, and some are a little bit more reserved. I think especially artists can be that way. But just to take a moment to take those students aside and say, hey, I really like what you're doing here. That's very creative. That's very curious. It's very interesting. Let's not forget to also remember to foster and develop our own intellectual curiosity, both as artists and teachers. If you're like me and so many others that I've talked to lately, this year has been particularly challenging, quite a bit draining. Sure, there's a lot of other adjectives that I could throw in there as well, but it's been a tough year this year. So we need to remember to take time to develop ourselves. If we're not being challenged, if we're not being lifted up, if our own creative juices aren't flowing, then it's going to be very difficult for us to encourage those things in our students. So it's so important that we do try as best we can to take time for ourselves. Get involved in your local arts community. If you are a working artist, as so few of us are able to do, but if you are, get out there and show your art, share your art with your community and the people around you. You can also get involved in local arts organizations. We've got the Brazos Valley Art Ed here in the Bryan-College Station area, which is a wonderful resource, an opportunity to share ideas, to vent when necessary, and just to be around our tribe, to be around other people that are like us and are going through a lot of the same things that we are. Can be very enriching experience for us. Just get out there and do things that lift you up and build your curiosity and your creativity so that you'll have something to give back to your students. So very, very important. Over the course of this year's sessions, Amber Herbalin and I will do our best to not only give you some food for thought, some ideas to ponder, But we've also got planned some really fun and engaging hands-on activities that will hopefully help foster that curious and creative spirit, not only for you, but also for your students. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions or comments or suggestions that you have. We are here to serve you, and we look forward to this year's conference. Have a blessed day.